Welcome to Health System CIO's interview with Anahi Santiago, CISO with ChristianaCare. I'm Anthony Guerra, founder and editor-in-chief. Anahi, thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
All right, very good. Just briefly, a little bit about your organization and your role, and we'll go from there.
Sure. So I am currently the Chief Information Security Officer for ChristianaCare. ChristianaCare is the largest health system and private employer in the state of Delaware, serving the three neighboring states, so New Jersey, Maryland, Pennsylvania, as well as Delaware.
All right, excellent. So the reason I reached out to have a chat with you is I saw you posted, it was a while back, but you posted something about um, this ambassador program you had developed, and where you were offering free cybersecurity coursework for non-IT folks, for regular users. Um, and I guess the idea behind this whole thing is that uh, the more everybody knows about cyber, the safer they'll be. We know that sort of the number one threat there is the phishing emails that come in. They're coming into everyone. And the more we could do to make sure that people are mindful of cyber, I assume this program maybe goes beyond that, beyond phishing and spotting those emails. But I'll let you just take it from here. Tell me a little bit about the genesis of this idea and this program, how it came to you, how it came about. I understand there's a grant involved. And then sort of we can go into a little bit about the rollout and all that kind of stuff. But let's start with the genesis.
Sure. I'm actually really excited to talk about this program. And so a few months ago, probably late spring, early summer, we had an organization that reached out to, so we have a department called iLead. They are responsible for just workforce education and training across the board,
Hmm.
whether it's training our clinicians, whether it's building capabilities, or whether it's providing support to departments like IT and information security on all things training. And so this external organization reached out to that component of our organization to engage in conversations around a Department of Labor grant that they were involved with, to
Hmm.
be able to offer a myriad of different types of trainings to our workforce. There were opportunities for data analytics, for cloud security. I'm sorry, for just cloud in general, software development, and cybersecurity. I have a excellent. I mean, we all have an excellent relationship with our iLead teams, but I work very closely with them just because of what you mentioned, just the critical nature of being able to reach all of our caregivers, because they're the target when it comes to potential cyber attacks, and because they're our greatest asset in defending against organizations. So, given our strong relationship, we started working together on ideation of whether we could potentially offer cybersecurity training to members of our workforce. And the training, as it's constructed, involves a 12-week course that is, we're in week 11. We're entering week 12 next week, which is super exciting. The course is designed to enable our caregivers, anyone that takes the course and finishes it, to sit for two certifications,
Hmm.
the Network Plus and the Security Plus certifications. So industry acknowledged certifications that are rather complex.
Hmm.
And so being able to offer a course to help caregivers study and pass is a huge win for any student that is interested in obtaining those certifications. In addition to that, there is another component that's considered on the job training, and that is an expectation that those that will complete the course and will sit for these certifications will actually have an opportunity to implement the things that they have learned into their day-to-day workspace. And that's where the notion of the cybersecurity ambassadors came from,
Hmm.
is now that they're almost done with the coursework and they're going to start prepping and studying for these exams, they need to be able to apply their learnings in their day-to-day jobs. And and so we actually thought maybe we'll get 12, 15 people to sign up for this, but we did open this up to any caregiver in the organization that had any level of interest.
Mhm.
And surprisingly, we had about 150 people that signed up, which was really exciting. Um, some learned about the complexities and the volume of work and how time consuming this would be. And so we had naturally some people that dropped off, but
Mhm.
we have about 96 people that are entering their last week, and are, in my opinion, demonstrating that they're pretty committed to this program. And so I am now in a stage where I am designing, what we can introduce into their daily work that isn't going to detract from them and their existing roles, but can add value to their learnings, can give them the hours that they need for on the job training, and can also enable us to extend the fabric of our information security team into non-information security departments. So I will say that about 44% of the people taking this course, out of those 96, about 44% are IT people that are just not in information security roles, but
Mhm.
might have an interest in learning about information security and potentially moving into an information security role in the future. Um, and so for that 44%, I think it's going to be a lot easier to be able to sort of design that on the job training that will help them to um, work through their learnings in their day-to-day capacity. The other 66% are non-IT professionals that are either clinicians, they might work in data analytics, they might work in billing and revenue cycle. And so that's where I'm really focused on how can they be an extension of our team? How can they be ambassadors? And what tools and how do I empower them to do things like create cybersecurity training for their departments, which is something that I think we're lacking in our information security training and awareness program, in terms of, instead of just giving everyone cybersecurity training where we tell them not to click on links and we tell them not to walk away from the workstations and leave them logged on and unattended and move things to public cloud. There's typical things that we teach everybody. But if I can actually work with a nurse to craft cybersecurity training that is meaningful for a nurse that is at the bedside and is working inside of a nursing station and is working with medical devices, and I can work through the lens of a nurse that now has cybersecurity training to sort of develop content that's meaningful. That's a huge win. That is rich for the entire program. It'll add value to the clinicians. And so I'm hoping that I can utilize these individuals to not only help to craft training, but also socialize information security policies and procedures in a way that is meaningful for clinicians, as well as engage in another really critical project that we are endeavoring in, which is something I'm calling operational resiliency. And so I will share a little bit about that program, and then I'll give you an opportunity to ask questions because I know I've been talking for a really long time. But one of the things that our leadership and executive management is um, is is prioritizing for our organization is to work with our clinicians and our business leaders and our non-IT partners on designing resilient processes that will enable us to operate our organization in the face of a major extended IT outage, whether it's because of a massive ransomware attack or some other um, reason why we may not have systems that are available to care for patients, recognizing how impactful and stressful that can be to an organization to have to go on downtime for weeks, to have to care for patients without technology and EHRs. And so this is another opportunity where I can work with these ambassadors to have them work with their department to build those downtime capabilities as part of this overall enterprise-wide initiative that we have sort of agreed needs to be a priority for our organization. So I know I just shared a lot. Obviously, I'm very
Awesome.
excited about this
Yeah.
program, but what can I expand on?
All right, so let's just make sure I understand the specifics. And again, I'm asking these questions with an eye toward people in your position at other health systems who are like, I want to do this. This sounds really cool. So we understand there's two certifications associated with this. The curriculum is developed by whom?
It is developed by this external company that reached out to us um, through the Department of Labor grant. They do
So,
this as part of their core business model.
so that this is an external third party company that's developed the curriculum. And then they contacted this internal unit in your organization called iLead.
Correct.
Right, and iLead then works you. So the curriculum's developed, it's already certified to get them 2 certifications. So if you do this course, you're gonna get these 2 certifications. Then you sort of take this and sort of market it internally to see what kind of interest. You got quite a bit more interest than you thought. There's been a small amount of attrition, but certainly not a huge amount of attrition in terms of people who've dropped out. It's about a 45 to 55% split between IT folks and clinicians. Um, so the IT folks are showing an interest by signing up for this in cyber. So they could be potentially come over to your team out of sort of general IT and come over to you if they wanted to, if that's something they want to do in consultation and discussion with their current manager and boss and all that kind of thing. Right. And now you've also said how this dovetails nicely with your need and everybody's need to work on resilience. And one of the most difficult things about working on resilience is getting true partnership with the operational leaders, right? Because that's very difficult to really get resilience. You need them on board, you need to understand their workflows. Also, a lot of it's sort of on them, right? To understand how you're going to deal with the cyber part of an incident, but this is all about coordinating so that they understand what a cyber incident could look like and they can then continue operating. It's not like you're going to figure out how they're going to continue operating, but you're going to help them understand the scenarios under which they may have to figure out on their own how they're going to continue operating. Is that fair to say?
I think that is succinctly said.
Okay.
Yes.
That's one of the biggest challenges right now in cyber, and I've been sort of focused on this. Think I get focused on gaps, right? I get focused on gaps because I can see the holes between sort of my responsibility and someone else's responsibility. And those gaps and cracks, I think, are where we have real trouble. And it's always seemed to me that around resilience, there's that big gap and crack between IT and IT security and the users around resilience and cyber outages. So this is a big issue we're trying to solve. You want to talk a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So, I think a lot of people in the organization don't understand the complexities of cybersecurity. And unless they've actually experienced a massive cyber attack, they don't understand how long it will take for an
Mhm.
organization to respond and recover. I think most people have experienced some sort of an IT downtime where we're out, we're down for 4 hours, maybe a day in a really bad scenario. And so they've designed downtime procedures that account for that small period of time and are generally adept at being able to work under duress for that small period of
Mhm.
time.
Mhm.
And when they think about a cyber attack, They traditionally think the CISO's got this, the
Yeah.
cybersecurity team will take care of this, they will help us to recover, and everything will be okay, or as okay as it can be, because security is going to fix everything. And so, what I've been working to socialize with our executive management and our leaders is when we face a massive cyber attack, it will take a significant amount of time for us to even just do the forensics piece to
Right.
understand what happened, how do we recover, how do we guarantee that the threat actors are no longer in our environment, how do we rebuild our systems in a methodical way that will ensure that we are not about to suffer a secondary attack. And that alone takes quite a bit of time, potentially days, if not weeks. And then we start to rebuild. And
Mhm.
that rebuild will take a significant amount of time given the size of our organization specifically. And during that whole time, our caregivers will have to work without technology. They will have to figure out how to chart on paper. They will have to figure out how to run um, orders to lab or to pharmacy and to radiology because our systems aren't going to be talking to each other. Everything will be done on paper. Could be that we have to divert patients from our emergency rooms, which has been known to be done. Could be
Mhm.
that we have to cancel surgeries because we know that that has happened in the past. Could be that we can't collect revenue. And, I hate to invoke change, but a lot of people were affected by changes, massive downtime that took many, many weeks for us, for them to recover and for us to be able to resume our revenue cycle processes. And so the impacts can be significant. But as a cybersecurity professional, I cannot profess to understand what it takes to admit a patient into the emergency room or what it takes to schedule a surgery or to deliver medications onto a nursing floor. But I do recognize that those capabilities will be needed, and that those capabilities may be needed without technology, which is something that a lot of us aren't used to, frankly, doing anymore. And
Mhm.
so I need to partner with all those business and clinical leaders to develop those capabilities so that they are at the ready and regularly practiced in preparation for a massive technological outage that may or may not be a cyber attack. It could simply be just failure in technology, or it could be failure in one of our suppliers, one of our EHRs, one of our
Right.
software as a service partners. And so I think that the healthcare industry has now gotten to a maturity level where this is getting a lot more focus because perhaps we've now created the cybersecurity capabilities to allow us to focus on operational resiliency.
It's really interesting how this is dovetailing this program, this education that's around sort of being a better cyber citizen and probably preventing them succumbing to phishing expeditions is helping you build relationships that are going to help you establish better resilience. It's sort of dovetailing nicely and working well. One of the things I want to ask you about is this I see these incidents, especially when we talk about things like diversion and canceling surgeries. These are going to be decisions. So, we can't just say, certainly IT's got its role and we understand. I think the bigger problem that we've been talking about is clinicians not being prepared for long outages and having to do some thinking and planning on that side. So they've got that work to do with you helping out, helping them understand things, emergency management having a role in dealing with making sure everyone's prepared. One of the things I think about a lot is the dynamic nature of an incident and how nobody in any leadership role can make a decision independently because they're all interdependent. And what I mean by that is somebody on the clinical side, you may explain at a high level what's going on. We're shutting systems down. Here are some things we're going to have to do. Here are some implications. And you may want to enact your emergency procedures and go on downtime procedures. The idea of, do we need to divert patients and do we need to cancel surgeries? That's going to be a very dynamic conversation between clinical leaders, IT leaders like yourself, and many other people could be at the table. We've talked about law enforcement being at the table if it's a
Mhm.
ransomware event, and cyber insurance companies being at the table. So somebody's saying, explain to me what's going on the system side so I can decide if we need to divert patients, or perhaps even at a more granular level, what type of patients I need to divert. Maybe based on what you're saying and what we need to take down, there's certain patients we can keep taking in, but yet there are other patients we can't keep taking in or we need to transfer. So there's a huge continuous discussion in my mind that needs to continue happening as people on the clinical side are trying to understand what you're telling them about what's going on, and you're trying to understand what they're telling you about different implications. And then there are different parties at the table trying to it's incredibly dynamic. And this speaks to like tabletops, right? And trying to simulate this beforehand as much as possible. So I'll let you go from there.
So, great points. One of the things that we're doing right now is starting those conversations, um, figuring out what the framework is going to look like, how we're going to get the right people in a room to have the conversations that need to happen and make these decisions.
Hmm.
We're also currently having conversations around, let's map out our critical functions. Let's think through a cyber event and what we think we would want to A, shut down first, and B, restore first. Is it oncology? Is it radiology? Is it pharmacy? Is it lab? Is it all of them? Can't be all of them. But instead of having these conversations in the face of an attack where where there's so much information that's coming in and out, let's have a
Hmm.
straw man. Let's just socialize what these conversations would look like. Let's figure out who the right people are that need to get in a room. Let's figure out what that room is. Something as simple as the logistics of, we have a hospital incident command center that's, every hospital has one, for events like hurricanes, mass casualties, what have you. It's based on industry standard hospital incident command system model, HICS. And so there's no need to recreate that.
Hmm.
But there are different conversations at the executive management level that will need to happen, that need a framework,
Mm.
so that decisions like diversion, canceling of surgeries, honestly, to pay or not to pay, um, engaging law enforcement, engaging cyber liability insurance, engaging other regulators and other outside entities that depend on us from the state and local level. So there are a lot of other complicated conversations that need to happen or decisions that need to be made in the face of massive cyber attack that you might not need to have during a hurricane or mass casualty. And so let's start talking about those now. Let's create a framework and a process and almost like an executive command center so that and practice all of this to your point so that we are somewhat prepared. We won't have all the answers, but if we've started to dialogue and we've started to practice, maybe we'll have enough answers that it will be even easier to have some of the other conversations that maybe we don't get to practice on a regular basis. I think you framed it really well in that this is really complicated. It's
Really complicated.
interdisciplinary. It requires a lot of stakeholders from a lot of different organizations. I think the biggest win is even getting organizations to understand the need for this and the why. and then to begin the work, which is
Mhm.
where we are now. We're starting to have those meetings, have those conversations, implement steering committees that will guide this work and will help prioritize this work because there's so much to do. We can't do it all. And so we're getting the right thought leadership in the right conversations to affect this really important work.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, and there's issues there about, as you mentioned, playbooks and frameworks and things like that. So we're not figuring it out on the fly, right? Let's get ahead of it so we've got some idea of what decisions might need to be made, who needs to be at the table, and then how those things can come to fruition. Um, I want to let you go soon. I'm just going to ask you one more question. Let's go back to the program we mentioned, the ambassador program. For your colleagues who listen to this and are quite interested in trying to replicate this, what's your best advice on how they can move forward?
I Feel free to reach out to me if you want a little bit more information. I know a lot of my peers already, so you have direct lines to me, but I'm available on LinkedIn as well. Happy to help and share information. I think this is a really great program for any organization.
Mhm.
I would, one of the things that when I walked into it, I really didn't realize how much work it was going to be, not only for the students, but also for us
Mhm.
who have
Mhm.
to engage and mentor and build out these on the job capabilities and sort of these ambassador programs. So walk into it with the eyes wide open. But I honestly think it is a really incredible capability for organizations to have and really building out not only a culture of cybersecurity, but the eyes and ears outside of the IT organization that can help you be more resilient, help, create better assets in our caregivers in terms of vigilance and awareness. And I just think I really do think it's worth the investment.
That's so great. That's so awesome, and it's exciting stuff. And I really appreciate your time. And thanks so much for joining me today. I hope I see you soon.
Thanks, Anthony. Thanks for letting me share.
You got it. Take care.
Take care. Bye.